Welcome to Northwest Arkansas Mall. Yeah, very creative name, but it doesn't lie. So, how is the Northwest Arkansas Mall doing nowadays? Let's go take a look. Under the development of General Growth Development Corporation, or General Growth Properties as they were known before Brookfield, the Northwest Arkansas Mall would officially open on March 1st, 1972, boasting Sears as its primary anchor. Sears was apparently on site 2 years as just a small strip plaza, and alongside Sears would be Osco Drug, Bed and Bath Fashion, General Nutrition, Caramel Corn, and Perry's Jewelry, just to name a few tenants. Dillard's would set up opposite from Sears, and in 1977, it was announced JCPenney would join the mall, and the third anchor store would open up to a rather crowded mall in 1978. Additionally, I found mention of Boston store in the papers, but never found anything beyond the 70s. Surely that wasn't part of the department store chain, was it? The opening day paper, although not very high quality, depicted a single image of the mall's interior, which displayed a fountain in the distance with seating arrangements and fixed planters in front. A very different look from what we have today. Although that said, the current look isn't half bad. More on that later. But naturally, no mall is complete without some set of community events, and the Northwest Mall had its share of them. From the Race for the Cure to the fireworks shows for Independence Day, you even had the Autumn Fest, which brought about a little bit of everything for everyone. Crafts shows, farmers markets, music, competitions, a grand parade, art exhibitions, and many activities just for kids. At least, that's what the paper said for the '84 Autumn Fest. Renovation was on the horizon as the mall came into the 90s, and in 1995, the first phase of renovation was announced with plans to raise the existing JCPenney building to build more mall and a food court. JCPenney was proactive in this, and they simply moved further west. Meanwhile, Dillard's was building up a secondary store on the mall's east side as their business was booming. This, alongside an overhaul of the mall interior, was set to be complete by 1997, and towards the tail end of the 90s, Sears would rebuild and expand their store. During all this, the Macerich Company would get a hold of the mall in 1998. And operations seemed to continue as normal, with shopping being done and events being hosted. From Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue to fundraiser drawings to raise money for abused children. However, in 2007, the mall would be sold again, this time to a group of local investors who formed the Midwest Mall Properties LLC. They would acquire 3 malls from Macerich, which included the Northwest Arkansas Mall, the Crossroads Mall in Oklahoma City, and the Citadel Mall in Colorado Springs. No sale price was officially disclosed. It seems this investment didn't age too well since in 2010, the paper reported on Crossroads Mall falling into foreclosure in 2009 and was given to the federal government. And to prevent this from happening to their other malls, Midwest Mall Properties would wind up hiring Urban Retail Properties to handle management. And it was reported at this time that the Northwest Arkansas Mall had a 91% occupancy rate. Northwest Arkansas Mall would be sold again in 2016, this time to Namdar. And you can get an idea of what that means. It was revealed that Midwest Mall Properties paid $150 million in 2006, which I believe encompasses all three of the malls. They would wind up letting go of the Northwest Mall for $39.5 million. It's also worth mentioning that as far back as 2006, competition in the region for physical retail was hot. If Walmart exploding in popularity wasn't going to put this mall in jeopardy, then the Pinnacle Hills would. I couldn't find too much between the two sale dates, so I presume things were at least going good enough. In January 2018, Sears would officially close after a 2-month liquidation sale starting in November 2017. Although that's hardly a surprise if you know the backstory behind Sears and Kmart. There's a reason they're known as the world's slowest liquidation sale. But this would be the only real anchor closure to occur with the mall outside of Woolworth way back when, at least as of the making of this video. The mall also managed to survive 2 storms, the first being 2020 as a whole, I won't go into detail, and the second being a near miss by a tornado that touched down in the region in 2022. 7 people were injured by this tornado, but no deaths were reported. Things remain rather quiet, but an article in 2022 did talk about the mall. Occupancy remains above average in the terrible 20s, which is respectable. However, the competition has not slowed down. Between the Pinnacle Hills, multiple big box stores, a sudden transition by some companies into freestanding stores, and 2020 seemed to be a really good year for online shopping, which even I'll admit to doing. Staples is decisively average, and malls either have a furniture liquidator that just peddles couches and beds, or they have one of those stores where a wooden chair is $500. All that aside though, the article did seem to have a hopeful bit near the end. Moody's Analytics spoke that in-person shopping is still necessary and brings some things and experiences that e-commerce just can't replicate. But it did acknowledge that malls will need to reinvent themselves. As for where the mall stands today, occupancy remains in a decent place, but property values are dropping. The mall reported to be valued at $19.25 million as of 2021. And with this mall being owned by Namdar, I'm wondering if that downward trajectory will continue and eventually spiral out of control. If there's a representative watching this, I tend to be wrong about a lot of things. Make that prediction one of them, please. There's something about 90s renovations and malls for me, and they tend to be just very hit or miss, but when they hit, they really hit. And I think this is one of those renovations that does hit the mark. It's not really just a bland corridor that happens to have a splash of pastels here and there. And I actually do like what they did with the food court, which we just passed by. And you have fountains along with what looks like a bridge crossing over into the food court. You don't see many of those anymore. Now, in the grand scheme of things, it might not be the best looking mall, but after many decisively average renovations like Richland Mall, Texas, I'm sold on this one. I even sat down in that food court for a bite to eat at Sbarro's. I have talked about Arkansas as a whole in previous videos, so I'll keep it brief in this one. Arkansas is generally not a great state. In fact, it's rather poor and overrun with generational poverty in some parts. The Northwest, however, it is doing quite well for itself, with plenty of employment and opportunity and essential services. But that said, this mall isn't doing quite as well as it should, and while I would like to kindle discussions about the mall's future, well, it's owned by Namdar. And Namdar isn't exactly known for revitalization or redevelopment. And I'm sure some of you are already reaffirming that in a much more blunt manner in the comments. So this mall would have to be sold, again, before any redevelopment could be taken seriously. But that said, at least as of the making of this video, it is one of the better Namdar-owned malls I have seen, and I've seen some real stinkers out there. Ask me again in 3 years, or maybe even next year, and I might be singing a different tune. The Northwest Mall isn't the best mall out there. I see vacancies, and the current owner does not inspire much in the way of hope or optimism. But seriously, prove me wrong. Now, it is a pleasant mall to be in and look at, but there is a real possibility that this place is just 2 steps away from dying. I am well aware that times are changing. I want to be hopeful that these places can survive and find a new purpose, but I also recognize that reality does not go the way you think it will. I recognize that this place will most likely wither away, before likely being sold to someone who believes in tearing it down and replacing it with a lifestyle center or warehouse, or worse, overpriced luxury apartments. Or maybe it'll become an empty lot that sits with no use at all. And for a lot of the malls out there, that's just the way it is. But 2 questions. Is that the way it should be? And is it actually going to be that way? Because recently an article highlighted Brookfield calling out the all malls are dead perception, saying that malls are still doing fine and they do have their place. Something to think about. Until next time, Fayetteville, this is Doomie Grunt wishing you and the Northwest Arkansas Mall farewell and good luck in the future. You know what? How do I know if that's actually how I pronounce it? Arkansas.